Fusion centers were set up to monitor U.S. citizens, and the U.S. Department of Justice legalized non-consensual experiments on the public. These fusion centers employ civilians to target individuals and harass them, intimidate them, vandalize their property, and interfere with their day-to-day life. This is known as gang stalking. Former high-ranking FBI agent Ted Gunderson reported in 2011 that himself and thousands of others were being targeted. FBI agent Mike German confirmed this as well. Several federal agents have reported that they were targeting individual Americans, including people who were simply pro-life, and that they were pressured to put more people on their targeting lists to legitimize more federal funding. These Homeland Security fusion centers are able to put any American citizen on the terrorist watch list without any reason or due process.
All right, I'm going to pause it there, and I'll remind everybody that we haven't seen any due process for many of the January 6ers, some of whom are still held in jail waiting trial in the gulags of Washington, D.C. So these non-consensual experiments include, believe it or not, voice-to-skull technology meant to make people hear voices that they ought not be hearing and to make people feel like they're literally going insane. Guys, can you imagine the power in the purse of the state and the deep state targeting you through gang stalking, making you think you're crazy by vandalizing your property, by using voice-to-skull technology, by following you around? Your heart has to go out to some of these targeted individuals, Matt, because this is a real thing, and people are finally waking up to the idea that we have an out-of-control, absolutely corrupt to the core federal government for sure, but deep state agencies within that government that are capable of absolutely anything. Look no further than Building 7 on 9/11 and the dues that hit Maui.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to if you're going to start a gang stalking as part of a political campaign, that's just out and out, totalitarianism. There's just no other word for it. You're living in like George Orwell's 1984, just straight off the bat. If the government just doesn't like you and then decides to harass you, surveil you, throw lawsuits at you, fine you, burn you out your property, you're not living in a free society. There's just no way this sort of thing can exist in what you would call a constitutional republic. There should be there are laws in theory to protect against this, but the government in and of itself is just a lawless mafia. And if they don't like you, I mean, just ask Trump. I mean, he'll probably fill you in. They're just going after people they don't like, pure and simple. This is mafia tactics.
These are cases that have been brought to the attention not only of the FBI, but also the CIA and the DNI and folks on the Hill. These have not been really publicized in any way. In fact, the reality is domestic incidents are being downplayed, if not outright ignored, by the U.S. government.
Here's the thing, Len. The United States, if it was a foreign nation perpetrating these attacks on civilians, the United States would know it because they have the technology to do so. That's one thing. And the other thing is they're just gaslighting people because they know where it's coming from, and they know who's doing it, and they know who has the weapons and who is using those weapons against innocent people. So it's a matter of time when all will be known, and we just hope that Congress would move in and do something before it has to be us unveiling this atrocity. Mr. Jordan has his weaponization committee precisely investigating the wrongdoing at the FBI and the labeling of innocent people as domestic terrorists, which is nothing but including them in the terrorist database. Yet they have shied away from looking at the silent Holocaust going on in front of everybody. And I really urge them to just take the initiative to investigate and do something about it, like Senator Frank Church did.
I suppose you may have heard that Kamala Harris's trip to Vietnam site of our last pointless and lost war, was temporarily delayed due to fears about the Havana Syndrome. So let's talk about this so-called mysterious Havana Syndrome. Well, first of all, it's not mysterious, and secondly, it has nothing to do with Havana, so calling it the Havana Syndrome is a bit disingenuous. Havana has almost nothing to do with it. It's being used all over the world, in many countries, on many people. Let's be clear, this is not a mystery. It is very well documented. This is a weapon. This is microwave mind control technology developed simultaneously by China, Russia, and the United States. This is not a virus or a disease. This is a purposeful man-made weapon. Innocent, unsuspecting people around the world have been unwittingly experimented on with it for decades. We know that these three countries, superpowers, are not above experimenting on their own people. They all have programs devoted to this mind control technology. This is not conspiracy. This is not paranoia. This is well-chronicled fact. For instance, Sony, our beloved Sony Corporation, has one of the patents on this technology. It makes you wonder if they're trying it out on us when we watch one of their shows on one of their TVs. But if you look up Havana Syndrome, you won't see any mention of this. But if you look up microwave weapons and electromagnetic frequency mind control techniques, there is a lot of information and documentation, but interestingly, it's never connected to this so-called syndrome. So calling it Havana is a very successful propaganda technique, another brainwashing technique for us to associate this weapon with the communists, whoever they are these days. This is yet another way to cover up the truth. So the American government and the military know exactly what this is, and it's no mystery. You've heard of PSYOPs, you've heard of MK Ultra, you've heard of the National Security Council, you've heard of the CIA. It's well known we collaborated with Nazis after the war on various technologies, including experimental aircraft, with the man who would be known as the father of the space program, ex-Nazi Wernher von Braun. Well, the Nazis were working on mind control techniques as well, and all the emerging superpowers, the US and Russia at that time, and now China, wanted in on it. We know that the CIA director, Richard Helms, ordered the destruction of all MK Ultra records in 1973. This again is a fact. So remember, when they say there's no evidence, that's because they destroy the evidence. You've heard of DARPA, D-A-R-P-A, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. They keep changing the names, the acronyms to throw us off the track, but the goal remains the same, to develop technologies to control our enemies, but also our own people. So when you see the madness in this country, the breakdown of sanity, the chaos that reigns supreme, you have to ask yourself, are we being subjected to this microwave or electromagnetic frequency mind control technology? And who's doing it? Is it Russia? Is it China? Or is it us?